on lifelong learning. This is lifelong learning is really interesting one because it was a very popular topic in workplace and organisational learning 15, 20 years ago, and it's really come back around. And UTS has really embraced it. Anyone's seen some new strategy from UTS, it's all about lifelong learning, doing more micro-credentials, getting new short courses, all this sort of thing. I find that really interesting because I think the future will not be about content necessarily. Things are changing too fast for you to be provided with the content you'll need. And I think what the lifelong learning is going to be about is actually learning skills. So, are you a critical thinker? Do you have research skills? Are you data literate? Do you know where to look for information? Are you a reflective learner? Can you reflect on your experience and what's changing and extract meaning from that and extract learning from that? I think these are going to be the really important parts. And in terms of automation, I mentioned before about the technology could be your colleague. That's really interesting because knowledge in organisations has traditionally been thought to be held kind of by people, and then people might put it in a system. That will definitely not be the case, and is increasingly not the case. So humans won't necessarily have the knowledge anyway, but we'll need to know what to do with it. So I think that learning to learn is going to be a really key part of being a lifelong learner.
Again, I would say that learning in that respect is a social process. We learn a hell of a lot faster just taking reflexivity to think and question and challenge than if we sat in the corner by ourselves and tried to learn. The skills come back to relational skills, the capacity to learn from other people at the same time as learning in other more conventional ways.
I've got one comment that relates to how the technologies are helping us learn. Linking Jens to your reflection on the leadership and the values that are central to the growth in UI path in the WiseTech organization for which I now work. We also have very strong mantras which guide the rapid growth. But the other half, to make it simple, are methods. So we've got the mantras, but we've also got the workflow. And the workflow is very empowering because when we capture routine processes into some kind of technology, then it does exist and persist in the organization when people come and go. So it provides us a stability from which we can improve or accelerate work. I agree with the need to learn from people, and I agree with the lifelong learning comments, Amanda, but there's kind of a flip side that organizational learning also is about embedding in the methods things that we need to reuse, and we're doing that effectively.
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room for me is the concept of power. We don't reflect on power at all. Power is phenomenal. It's everywhere. It's in every relationship as a power dimension, and much of our workplace experience is affected by how power is managed. But power is no one ever raises the word, no one talks about it. It's almost like I remember in my 30, 40 years ago, if you use the word capitalism, you immediately accosted as being a communist. When you raised the word power, you looked at, skewly as to what you're talking about. But it's fundamental to the relationships and the dynamic that we operate in. And a lot of the power these days, and this is the danger, I think, with robotics, it becomes an abstract form of power, which we're not even conscious of. It's just influencing us in our choices and our ways of being on a daily basis without us being aware of it. And therein lies a big danger.
I think that brings that's more artificial intelligence for because robotics is still it's more focused on the doing. And we know knowledge is power, and the AI engines that are being built, they already have that power that you talk about.
I'm talking more about political power too within the organization. So you could have a situation where technology cements the power base that certain people have, and that power base becomes inconspicuous, it becomes surreptitious, and so in that sense it cannot be contested. And in that way, as we see happening globally, we're seeing a movement towards autocratic leadership styles politically. One of the things that surprised me is that given all the technologies we now have that should have equalized a lot of things, our organizations are still sticking to hierarchical structures. those are industrial era structures where people were supervised very, very closely in the situation. We're now in a so-called, knowledge and digital era, and we're still organizing our organizations in industrial era forms. And I think that's to do with power. It's because the elite do not want to give away the power that's embedded in that structure.
So we move to something that has to do with robotic process automation. We have a question here that suggests that RPA, robotic process automation, focuses on cost savings through automation. Can it support revenue growth? In other words, so by making a process more automated, can it actually build revenue rather than just save jobs? So,
Yeah, I can give one example. There are basically 4 benefits that we categorize all the benefits into 4 major groups. Cost savings, 1, revenue growth, employee satisfaction, and compliance and risk. So these are the 4 major benefits that we see. And to give an example on revenue, I work with one university where we built a robot that answers or that sends an offer letter to international students, or reduces the time that is needed to send an offer letter to international students. And the way international students apply, they send applications to many universities. Let's say they want to come to Australia, they send 5 applications to 5 different universities. So typically, the first university that sends response with a positive offer letter gets the student. So by using robotic process automation, we actually gave that university a competitive advantage. So we reduced the time needed to send that offer letter, which resulted in an increase in international students. So that's one example where robotics helped to increase the revenue. And I could talk forever about this, but I have questions as well.
Julie, you're also involved in this sort of RPA thing, I would imagine, the processes at one step global. Is there any comment there on revenue versus savings?
Robotic process automation in my previous role, but general automation at WiseTech Global. Yes, I would say lead time, accuracy, and process time are the three kind of managerial metrics that you look at. And lead time, typically in sales cycles, supports revenue growth. Accuracy could help in sales cycles or on the cost side, and then process time, typically on the cost side. Any automation is going to support those 3 things. The question is what form of automation applies in your context.
Thank you. I think we're within about a minute of our wrap-up. So let me just, I'll make it as a comment. This one's got to the top and has to be read out. If Ken could have had one robot to help him throughout his academic career, what would it have done and why?
Sorry, I haven't got an answer to that.